On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, we talk about the single biggest thing to happen in Toronto sports last night, Jakob Walters scoring 15 points on 7 shots.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, October the 9th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 12 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Great place. Come hang out, talk ball. And last night, it was a great place to talk about baseball as well. The Yankees lose, baby. And go check out our pals at Locked On Blue Jays after this, as there's going to be a wee bit of celebration going on over there, one would assume. But we have business to get to today. After the baseball game last night, the Toronto Raptors played a preseason basketball game in Sacramento. The true big thing to happen in Toronto sports last night, not the Leafs winning their season opener, not the Jays advancing to their first ALCS since 2016. No, it was a 130-122 preseason victory over a stinky Sacramento Kings team for your Toronto Raptors, who were without Scottie Barnes, were without Jakob, but no problem. And we're going to get into all of the takeaways from this game. We were talking about the depth, which might actually be kind of awesome for this team. We'll talk about Brandon Ingram banging triples, looking more like a part of the offense. And of course, we got the good, the bad, and the as we always do to close out the show on the heels of a Raptors basketball game. Let's start, to me, with the most exciting development from the first two games. And yes, it's been awesome to see Brandon Ingram get buckets. We will talk about that coming up. But to me, this season, the competitiveness of this season, the Raptors' ability to win lots of basketball games, as much as it's going to hinge on the starters, it hinges upon them having more than 5 guys you can roll out there on any given night. And last night, in addition to what we saw in the first preseason game, continues to offer plenty of encouraging signs that the Raptors' depth may in fact be pretty damn good this season. Look, it's a lot of unproven guys, first years, second years, dudes who are coming in after kind of being journeymen and not really having established long-term roles in the form of Mamu. And yet, through a couple preseason games, which is just the preseason, it's all under the caveat of it's just the preseason, none of this matters. If the bad stuff with Scottie Barnes didn't matter, the good stuff doesn't matter all that much either. But you're looking for process. You're looking for things that can be carried over to the regular season. And we're seeing a lot of really good stuff with the second unit guys for the Toronto Raptors. And last night was no exception. It was, in fact, the resounding, hello, we're here, our depth might be kind of awesome game of the preseason. Jakob Walters, 15 points, 4 of 7 shooting, 2 of 3 from downtown, 5 of 5 from the line. Love to see him get into the line. Collin Murray-Boyles, 12 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 2 blocks, a +9 in 23 minutes. Hits a 3, goes 1 of 2 from downtown, 4 of 8 overall. Mamu with a tidy 5 points on 2 of 4 shooting, 5 boards, a steal, a block, a +16 in his minutes. Gradey Dick, after looking very rough in that first preseason game, 14 points on 6 of 7 shooting, goes perfect from 2-point range. Very good stuff from Gradey Dick there as well. Even Ochai Agbaji starting in this game, he was a -5, one of the only players on the team to be a minus in this game, but there was some interesting stuff with him. A couple nice drives, the 3-point shooting. He was 1 of 2 from downtown, a couple steals, doing the thing Ochai Agbaji does, which is just like do good basketball things on the floor. They got a bunch of dudes who I think will be additive to lineups, especially next to better players, right? It's great to see the bench mob go out there and do the thing. 5-man bench looks in the preseason. That's all fine and dandy. Darko Rajakovic has basically told us, that's not going to be a thing he does a bunch in the regular season. It's going to be a lot of 2 and 3 starters with bench guys to fill in the minutes across 48. And I think what we've seen so far from these dudes, they are all going to be able to play alongside starters, probably be elevated even further by playing next to better players, and provide additive skills that make these lineups sing. The starting lineup, I think all agreed, it's going to be the biggest work in progress for this team. We saw it on Monday night. Yes, no Jakob Poeltl, but Scottie Barnes still finding his niche, still looking for where he's going to find his points within the flow of things. We saw in that game on Monday as well, Brandon Ingram, kind of ISO heavy, didn't quite play within the flow. Was not the case last night. Really exciting stuff for him being incorporated and folded into the mix and the system last night, which we'll get into coming up. But the starters are going to be the big work in progress here. And the way that they're going to be able to work around that is the staggering thing, right? Take a couple guys out early, bring in a couple of these bench guys. And I mean, the shooting that they have on the bench right now, it's actually pretty exciting. I mean, this is not your last year's Toronto Raptors. This is not your couple years ago Toronto Raptors. They actually have shooting talent in their second unit in a way they have not had in quite some time. Mamu, we've talked about his propensity for banging above the break triples throughout his career. He was excellent last season. He's carried that over to the start of the preseason. I feel very comfortable with him taking threes. Jakobi Walter, we talked a lot about how his numbers last season from three were dragged down by a rough first 10 games coming out of the shoot. His final 50 or so games, he was fantastic shooting from three, 39%, really efficient. In this game, 2 or 3 from downtown, super confident in the 2 looks he made back-to-back in the third quarter. One right over DeMar DeRozan, right in his eye. Another one just kind of relocating to the corner. Just like really smooth, in-rhythm shots. Gradey Dick goes 1 or 2 from downtown. I still think that he's going to end up being a good shooter in the NBA. He's too talented of a shooter to not be one. Like Ochai Agbaji, we know last year was a dead-eye three-point shooter as well. You got those guys. You got Mamu. I talked about Mamu. And then, hey, Collin Murray-Boyles throwing one in as well. That's not so bad. Jamal Shed goes 1 and 2. Those 2 guys, I think, are out there for reasons other than their shooting. But to have like 4 guys who you could classify as good three-point shooters coming off the bench, it's going to matter big time for making this team potent across 48 minutes, for filling in the gaps that maybe the starters, maybe they lose some points early on as they try to figure out their mix and try to figure out the fit. All right, it's not quite working. All right, let's take a Jakob Poeltl out and put in Mamu, and we've got some shooting on the floor now. Let's take RJ Barrett out or Scottie Barnes out and put in Gradey Dick or Jakobi Walter, Ochai Agbaji for a little extra shooting in space around Brandon Ingram. There's just like a lot of shooting juice in that second unit. We haven't even talked about Jamison Battle, who's been in the sort of garbage time tier of the preseason rotation, but we know what a dead-eye shooter he is. We know that his shooting can just get him on the floor as it did last year. It's an exciting thing to see a team that actually has three-point ability. And look, they're not going to go 20 of 37 from 3 every night like they did last night. Absolutely not. It's not going to be that smooth all the time. But I also think they're going to have nights where they, are there with the volume. That's number one. Like this, the team that just did not get enough threes up last season, there seems to be a directive to get threes up so far in the preseason. The way they want to play, the up-tempo looks that they're getting, I think that's going to be conducive to getting good three-point looks off. Transition threes, man, they're a big deal. They're hard to guard, especially if you have guys barreling towards the rim. We saw a couple instances last night of Emmanuel Quickley on the run, moving really quickly, the ball getting up the floor fast. All of a sudden, the defense has to collapse at the rim, and boom, there's a shooter in the corner. Quickly finds him, bang. It's nice to be in the modern age, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. And I think the Raptors' depth, again, plenty of unproven stuff. There's got to be like proof of concept in real games against real competition that are not the Sacramento Kings. But all of this stuff, I think, was stuff you could have reasonably hoped could come through. Internal growth, Jakobi Walter, Gradey Dick, all these guys improving incrementally year over year. Collin Murray-Boyles coming in and just being a total make stuff happen guy, an F stuff up guy who just comes in, blocks a 3, leaks out, gets an and one dunk the other way, hits a 3 when he can, 6 assists as well, diamond dudes up. Like there's just a lot of fun stuff going on with this bench, a lot of really enjoyable basketball things to take in when these guys are on the floor. And again, it's not going to carry over this easily or seamlessly into the regular season when the games get real, but they're also not going to be playing in these 5-man bench looks in the regular season either. They will be playing with better players, adding things to those lineups, bringing in different skill sets to balance the scales a little bit between offense and defense with the starters who are going to carry a lot of this, the offense for this team in particular. But having that shooting in space around them, those outlets, those guys who can finish plays when it swings to them within the flow, really exciting stuff. The depth was the clear takeaway from me last night. It looks like it might be legit. Mamu, by the way, I mean, he's more exciting almost attacking a closeout than he is taking a 3, and I love watching Mamu rip 3s, but a couple times so far in the preseason, he's gotten the ball on the perimeter, closeouts coming, he puts it on the deck, and he's just like a steam train of downhill momentum with footwork and a head on a swivel looking for passes, dump offs, spin moves, all that stuff. Mamu's awesome. Collin Murray-Boyles was awesome. Jakob Walter was awesome. Gradey Dick was awesome. Look, this was still a come down after watching the Blue Jays game, going from that intensity to a preseason game. But certainly I was able to keep my eyes open throughout this one because the bench was doing some stuff to turn heads. That was great to see. Again, it's the preseason. We'll see. Who knows how much it carries over. But again, these guys are not going to be playing in 5-man looks with all bench guys in the regular season. They will be there to be additive, helpful contributors to the starters who are carrying the day. And I think they stand a very good chance of doing that, even if it's not all 5 guys every single night, right? You probably get 2 or 3 every night who are going to pop. And that is a better situation than we've seen with this team in quite some time. We'll come back on the other side. We'll talk about Brandon Ingram, who was banging triples last night off the catch and very much looked more involved with the system of the offense last night. We'll get into that, the fit with him and RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly's work with all of that, and where he factors into weaving Ingram into the mix. We'll do that all coming up in just 1 second here on your Thursday episode of the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Quo, and one of the tools that helps make a huge difference for businesses is Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, a friend of ours for quite some time. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about on the show before, just with a new name, and here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Look, sometimes you're not always at your phone, and when you run a small business, you got a million things going on. It's easy to miss calls, easy to miss potential customers. Don't worry, Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications, works right through an app on your phone or computer. No more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline or missing those calls when you are not available to answer. It's a wonderful thing. You've got their built-in AI game changer, which is, it takes after-hours calls, captures leads, keeps business moving even when you're off the clock. And whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional and work as a team with your team. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/LockedInNBA. That's QWO.com/LockedInNBA. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Back at it here on your Thursday edition of Locked On Raptors, breaking down a 130-122 win over the Sacramento Kings in the second preseason game for the Raptors. Just 4 more of these left. 4 more. So many preseason games. Next up against the Celtics on Friday at home. I think it's their only at home at Scotiabank preseason game. Let's go to Brandon Ingram, shall we? Who, he's like the big ticket guy on the team. I thought the depth for me was a bigger takeaway from this one, but could have led the show with Brandon Ingram as well. He was awesome once again and continues to put up basically a point a minute in the preseason so far. 21 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 7 of 15 shooting, 5 of 7 from downtown. That's the one when you have the box score in front of you. That's the one you circle, you highlight. 5 of 7 from 3 in just 23 minutes for Brandon Ingram in this game. 7 threes attempted in 23 minutes is awesome on its own for Brandon Ingram. You love to see that. And a lot of, there was a couple pull-ups, but a lot of it in the flow of the offense, catch and shoots, set up on the table for him, and just taking the shots that come to him within the flow. And I do think that was pretty emblematic of how Ingram looked in this game. And I think, look, it's going to be a process. This is not always going to be a linear sort of upward curve of Ingram looking super smoother than the offense. Him and Scottie Barnes, obviously, are the 2 guys who maybe need to figure out the chemistry the most based on what we saw on Monday. Scottie didn't play last night, so maybe it makes sense that things looked a little smoother with Ingram as they still have to iron that stuff out. But I think if you can continue to play and use Ingram like you used him last night when Scottie's in the lineup, they stand a very good chance of a lot of good things happening. I think in the first game, there was a lot of, all right, Ingram gets the ball up high. Maybe there's like 10, 12 seconds on the clock, and he's just going to go to work and do his thing. And there was a couple instances of that in this game. He had one beautiful ISO on Domantas Sabonis where he just kind of crossed him up, pulled up from 18 feet, bang, awesome, cash. Love to see that. And there were a few of those ISO forays for Brandon Ingram, but I thought in this game they were way more intentional about using actions to get him the ball in favorable spots within the flow of the offense. I thought There were a couple times they were using Iverson cuts, where if you don't know what that is, basically the guy you want to get the ball is on one side of the floor on one wing. You set a screen so he can cross the floor. Usually it was Collin Murray-Boyles setting that screen in this game to get to the other side free from his defender. You get him the ball there, and then he's got an advantage to go and work with. Ingram scored off of those once or twice, and it was really smooth and really just like simple, elegant basketball. There was obviously the catch and shoot threes. Taking 7 threes is a huge deal for a guy who the big question was, is this guy going to take threes? Is he going to buy in to being a catch and shoot guy at times? He's a damn good catch and shoot player. Like, that's been true throughout his career in terms of accuracy. The volume has just not always been there. It's been there in spurts. Last year in the 18 games he played for New Orleans, he took 6+ threes a game. That was great when he was an all-star back in, was it 2019-20 or 2021, his first year with New Orleans. He took 6 threes a game. There seems to be a line between really effective Brandon Ingram and higher three-point volume because he's a very good three-point shooter, and he helps to increase the three-point efficacy of this team if he's taking them. And yeah, I mean, he took, 3 threes in the first game, in his 20 or so minutes. That's a pretty good clip to be at, honestly. And then 7 threes in 23 minutes last night. Within the flow, other guys setting the table for him. There were a couple of instances where Immanuel quickly got great paint pressure, kicked it out, secondary assist, goes up and swings to Ingram, bang. And he did the inverse as well, right? He had a couple moments where he made the extra pass within the flow, set up Ochai Agbaji for a 3 in the second half in that situation. He just looks like he was very much bought into what they were doing. They were running him as a screener a couple times where he'd come over, set a screen, and slip real quick into space, got him the ball. Don't think it produced many points, anecdotally thinking back. It's hard to find the clips of this stuff in the preseason, but based on what I remember watching and writing in my notes, like they had him come and screen a couple times. I think that's going to be a key thing. We talked yesterday about using guards to screen for Scottie Barnes as a way to get Scottie going a little bit. If you can screen for Scottie with Brandon Ingram as a 3-point threat, again, maybe that's more likely to be switched because you're likely to have similarly sized guys guarding each of them, but that's not always going to be the case. Not every team has multiple 6'8", 6'9" guys to guard those guys. And sometimes Scottie's going to be playing more as a nominal 5 and we matched up with a 5. And so maybe there's some switches you can get that way for either Ingram or Barnes to go and exploit. Just using him in creative ways. And I think more creativity with how they use Brandon Ingram is going to be a good thing. And then he's got the sort of, okay, there's nothing here, I'm just going to go get a bucket for us thing too. And that was great when he busted it out as well. There was way more balance, I think, in this game for Brandon Ingram than there was in the first game, where it was good. It looked pretty. It was excellent. It was efficient, but it didn't feel quite like it was, a marriage of his style of play and the way the Raptors want to play. Last night felt a lot more like that. And I was pretty into it. And look, there's a couple guys who have a pretty big say about making this fit work, right? We'll talk about Scottie Barnes at length, I'm sure. We'll talk about him more a little bit later on, or for Friday's show. Joe Wolfon's going to hop on the pod, and we'll dig into optimizing Scottie and how him and Ingram can kind of work with one another. But I think one of the early stories of the preseason is the fast chemistry between R.J. Barrett and Brandon Ingram. Not something I really expected, but at the same time, in a lesser offensive role, I was very keen and eager to see R.J. Barrett. I was pretty bullish on him being able to be successful in that smaller, streamlined offensive role. Last night, he hit his threes. He was 3 of 5 from downtown. That's a big deal. Wasn't so good from 2. We'll talk about that coming up later when we get to the good, the bad, and the guess where that's going to fall into. But it seems like RJ and Ingram know where each other wants the ball. There's a really good sort of on-court kinship there. The Duke boys, if you will, really seem to have found a quick connection, which is great to see. I think the other guy, obviously, who's pretty important and pivotal to making this whole thing work is Immanuel Quickley, who, was a bit of a mixed bag for Quickley last night. Only 2 of 9 from the field. He had 3 turnovers, a couple of those sort of jump pass situations that you don't love from Quickley that I do think, to his credit, last year he kind of ironed out of his game once he actually started playing more. It's been said, we talked about this the day the Raptors traded for Quickley, or days after when we spoke to Gavin from Locked On Knicks way back a couple years ago. Like, Quickley is very much a rhythm player, and getting into regular games, getting those reps, kind of ironing out the kinks. It seems to be a process for him after a long layoff. Obviously, the summer is the longest layoff you get, and I think we'll see him refine his creation package a little bit. And I thought this game looked way better for him than the first game did, where he just kind of was out there, wasn't doing much to create, was just kind of not floating, but like moving off ball, not always getting found, wasn't really an active participant in the offense very often. Last night, I thought he had a lot of great sequences of, all right, drive, paint pressure, kick, He had a great drive for a floater and when he got deep paint position as well. There was obviously some stuff, the turnovers, the jump pass stuff, not hitting his twos, not hitting all of his shots. He was 104 from downtown as well. That needs to be ironed out. But I thought the process stuff for Quickly was good. There were some of those secondary assists I talked about where they got threes directly off of good paint pressure by Quickly, and then a quick kick out, and then the swing, and then the three. He's going to be a huge part of making sure this is not just a Brandon Ingram do stuff offense, right? He's one of the better ball handlers they have. He is one of the quicker guys they have. He also has the pull-up three-point shooting juice, which I don't think we've seen him take a single pull-up yet so far. Maybe one when he shook a defender in space last night and just kind of walked into one. But I thought all the threes he took last night, by the way, were like really nicely crafted threes. There was a nice baseline out of bounds he hit one on. There was, a nice sort of like pitch and get off the ball, pitch it back, take a three from the top of the arc situation. There was a flare screen they ran for him that got a good look. Again, the process stuff I thought was really nice with Quickly. Like to see him use that pull-up juice a little bit more. But yeah, because of that pull-up juice, because of his speed, because he can get into the teeth of the defense better than most other guys on the team, even if it's not like his greatest skill, he certainly does it better than most. That's going to make it so it doesn't have to be Ingram all the time on the ball creating and doing his ISO thing, right? If Quickly's able to help facilitate, if Barnes is able to start doing that as well, whether it's as an inside-out guy from the post or, finding ways to get him in space with screening actions above the arc, if you can have Ingram work off the ball, it's a damn good second side guy to have the ball swing to with 12 seconds on the clock, whether he's taking a three, whether he's then driving it and trying to score. This offense will work better if Ingram is not being tasked with, oh God, okay, I guess I just have to create again because no one else can create advantages. I thought we saw some good advantage creation last night from Quickly, and that is going to be huge to continuing the sort of the folding in of Brandon Ingram into this offense. It's like you're making a batter and you're folding in your ingredients and you're trying to weave in Ingram while trying to keep everything balanced. You want Ingram to be prominent, but you also want the flavor to be balanced across the board. You don't want the texture to get all out of whack. I've been watching a lot of Canadian or Great British Bake Off over the last little while, in case you haven't noticed. But I was very encouraged last night by the way those three guys, Quickly, RJ, and Ingram, interacted on the floor. And then obviously, I think Ingram with these bench guys, he stands to benefit so much from all this extra space these shooters provide. And he's looked really good playing in those in-between lineups with bench guys so far. Very hopeful and excited for what that can, what kind of fruit that can bear. Ingram, Barnes, Mamu as a 3-4-5 with whoever else you want in the backcourt. Into it. We got to see that hopefully once Scottie's back playing games. We'll come back on the other side, round it out with the good, the bad, and the thing I liked, thing I didn't like, and this got me a little intrigued from the latest in Raptors basketball. We'll do that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Prize Picks, and every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley for a rushing touchdown, and you're in the game. Let me tell you, I got some guys on my fantasy football team. If you take the under on them, you're going to be doing just fine. Thank you. I'm having a rough go. I've got some injuries going on. I'm having to roll out Sean Tucker, the third stringer for the Bucks, because Bucky Irving's hurt. And guess what? He had negative points for me. If you took the under on Sean Tucker over the weekend, you would have gotten some money out of the deal. If you want my list of players I have, just shoot me a message. I'll tell you, and then take the under on them on whatever they're doing. Passing yards, rushing yards, because it's not going super well for Sean in fantasy football, but it can go well for you if you have better players on your teams or on your entries each day, or you just pick the players that I have and take the under. Download the Prize Picks app and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups, that is, after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked in NBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Back at it here, closing things out with the good, the bad, and the the way we rounded every single episode of this year's podcast on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. Again, a thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, and a thing that has me a wee bit intrigued from the latest Toronto Raptors basketball game. The good, 0.5 second decision making. I thought that was really on display in this game. Obviously, we've heard 0.5 basketball talked about a lot with Darko Rajakovic. And look, 0.5 basketball, that's not the system they play. That's just like a philosophical ethos Darko wants his players to live by. You get the ball, you make a quick decision, and that just keeps the train flowing. It keeps everything in the next sequence easier to achieve because you're keeping the defense on their heels. If you give the defense time to catch up, if you give the defense time to square up and re-solidify themselves, it makes it so all the work you've done is a whole lot of running around for cardio's sake and nothing really productive. I thought last night you saw a whole lot of Mamu putting the ball on the deck to attack a closeout. Really quick stuff when he got the ball. Jakobi Walter, I thought, was fantastic in this regard. Ball came to him. He wasn't messing around. He was either putting it up or he was putting it on the deck to get the next thing going. Had a beautiful assist underneath to Collin Murray-Boyles as a result. And that whole sequence in the second half there was, Murray-Boyles makes a play. He saves it on the baseline. It comes back out to Walter. And, if Emmanuel quickly in the corner, he's wide open. That was a decision he could have made. Or Walter drives against a compromised defense. Everyone panics because Quickly's wide open in the corner. A defender flies out there. And then all of a sudden, Murray-Boyles is just like underneath, totally untouched, assist, bucket, easy, right? Like, it's just like that quick decision-making is just so helpful. And it just, again, helps accelerate your possessions. So one thing layers into the next, layers into the next, layers into the next. And all of a sudden, you've got a really good shot out of it. Gradey Dick, I thought, did a fantastic job with this as well when the ball came to him. I thought Emmanuel quickly had a couple of really decisive drives off of catches that led to floaters or laydowns or kickouts. Ingram was doing it too. This was another part of Ingram playing within the flow of the offense. It's something that I really hope we see Scottie Barnes do when he's back and playing, right? Get the ball, make a quick decision. Don't meander around looking for a mid-range shot. Get the ball, do something quick and forceful, and that can overcome some of your spacing issues. That can overcome your issues with 3-point or long range accuracy, your long twos, whatever. If you're making quick decisions, you're putting the defense on its heels. Good things are going to happen. You're going to draw help. You're going to find the open guy. Like it's not a very complex game when you really boil it all down, and it becomes so much easier with that quick decision making. I thought that was a real standout last night watching the flow of the offense, and just like there was not a whole lot of ball comes to a guy and it's like, what do I do with it now? Let me think about it for a sec. No, it was just like, all right, boom, go, awesome. The bad 2-point shooting against a team without much rim protection in the Kings. Not ideal. This has obviously been a weak spot for the Raptors in recent seasons. Their rim pressure has been there. They get to the rim, they just can't finish. And you would hope that the arrival of Brandon Ingram, having more shooting, helps makes things a little bit easier. RJ Barrett obviously struggled mightily because his drives just saw all the help in the world last year because you could help off of the corner and it was totally not going to hurt you. Brandon Ingram has been a very good interior finisher in his career. Not so much the case in this one. Ingram goes 2 of 8 on twos. RJ 0 for 6. Emmanuel quickly 1 of 5. Shout out Gradey Dick bailing the team's 2-point shooting percentage out by going 5 of 5 inside the arc. But the Raptors shoot like significantly better from downtown in this game than they do from 3. They go 20 of 37 from deep, 44 of 91 overall. You do the math on that one. Not so good. 24 makes from 2-point range on 54 attempts, my math says. That's not ideal, especially, again, against a team where Domantas Sabonis is your best rim protector. If that's your best rim protector, you ain't got rim protection. And so, yeah, not ideal. You hope they can clean that up, and maybe it's just early season rust and brick and stuff that you usually wouldn't brick, but certainly something to keep an eye on because improving the 2-point percentage is going to be a really, you can take all the threes you want, and I think they will take a lot of threes this year compared to seasons past because they got a lot of guys looking to let it rip, but it's, you got to balance that out by being a good 2-point team too, right? That's how you cut into the variance. This was my issue with the Boston Celtics last year, right? They took 1 million threes a game, but when the twos weren't falling and the threes weren't falling, like they just became a pretty easy team to go and beat on a random night. I think that hurt them in the playoffs eventually as well. Obviously, Jason Tatum got hurt, and that was the big thing that hurt them. But I think, you can't just be spamming threes and hope to get by. That's how you become the Brooklyn Nets or the Charlotte Hornets of the last couple of years. Oh, great, you took all these threes, but if you can't hit the twos to balance it out, then you become super dependent on shooting variance to keep you alive. That's not great. And I think Ingram, RJ, and IQ will probably go better at some point than 3 of 19 from 2-point range combined. I think it's probably not going to be that bad, but certainly not a thing that stood out in this game as a good thing. So therefore, it's a bad thing. Let's wrap things up here. 6 assists for Collin Murray-Boyles. Knew he had playmaking feel. Knew he just had the chops to be a tidy little connective passer, but 6 assists to 0 turnovers. Exciting player, man. Seems like he is a no-brainer rotation player from day one. And in this like up-tempo team that farms assists and there's just going to be stats to be had because they run like hell, maybe the numbers really do just kind of become easy for him to walk into, even coming off the bench in a limited role, to get that all-rookie consideration, to get that sort of, maybe he's like a shortlister for Rookie of the Year type of stuff. He looks ready, man. He looks like an NBA player on the floor. He does not think about what Gradey Dick looked like as a rookie. Just like Bambi out there. Just like, oh God, this is the world. Like without my mom, this is scary. Like Collin Murray-Boyles is fine. He is like at home on an NBA floor. On top of the assists, I mean, another thing I noted about Collin Murray-Boyles last night, that dude can set a damn screen. I talked about him being a guy who would spring Ingram free off the ball. But like coming to set a high screen, rolling, like he already might be like the second or third best screener on the team. That's crazy. I mean, you'd like everyone else to get a little better at it. It's a very important yet subtle art that not everyone really excels at. But if Collin Murray-Boyles is going to screen like that and make those connective passes like that and go 4 of 8, knock in the cursory 3 here and there, man, oh man, really exciting for a rookie player to be able to kind of do all that stuff. Just be, again, an agent of mayhem and chaos out there. Hands everywhere. 2 blocks, blocking a 3, leaking out, and 1 dunks. It's just a fun collection of skills Collin Murray-Boyles is bringing to the table. Can't wait to watch more. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for rocking with the show. We'll be back again on Friday with Joe Wolf on, who we're going to get into some of the fit stuff with the starting lineup, what we'd like to see the Raptors deploy, and stuff that excites him about this Raptors team. Someone who's been a little down on the Raptors outlook the last couple seasons seems to be coming around on the team for this year. We'll get our pal Wolf back on the pod. Looking forward to that one very soon. He was on with Vivek a couple times in the summer while I was off. I'm looking forward to having a chat with my old pal Joe a little later on today, and maybe we just have it devolve into Blue Jays talk because we're very obsessed about the Blue Jays as well. Either way, thank you so much. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, join the Discord, link in the description of the podcast. Go check out Locked On Blue Jays today. Why would you not? Listen to every Blue Jay show. Listen to Locked On Yankees too to get the Schadenfreude element too. It's been great. I love listening to the podcasts that cover the teams that my team vanquishes in the playoffs. Shout out to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast, 2019. One of the best listening experiences of my entire life. Love those guys. But man, was it great listening to that show after the shot. Anyway, that's your podcast listening advice for the rest of the day. Locked On Blue Jays, Locked On Yankees. And thank you so much for rocking with the show. We will talk to you again on Friday. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.